Evil is rarely committed by people who sit awake at night second-guessing themselves. It does not usually come from the ones who turn over their thoughts, wondering if they are wrong, if they have done harm, if they might betray what they believe is right. Instead, much of the evil we see comes from the spiritually overfed, the modern-day moral judges who stand tall in their own eyes. They wrap themselves in a sense of spotless virtue so tightly that they never feel the prick of doubt against their skin. They refuse the discomfort of honest self-examination. They would rather smother truth than sit with even a flicker of guilt. So many politicians love to stand before us as living proof of virtue. They wear goodness like a costume, but beneath that costume the lies pile up. Corruption drips like a slow leak. They silence and punish anyone who dares to challenge the image they have built for themselves. They pass rules that gnaw away at the healthy parts of society. Some might wonder, do they know they are hypocrites? Or do they really buy into the pure version of themselves that they keep showing the world? To make sense of this sickness, it helps to borrow the words of a well-known psychiatrist who dug deep into what makes a person truly malignant. He gave us a way to look at how a twisted version of self-love can rot into something far more dangerous. He spoke of evil as a force that lives in us or around us, hunting life and what makes life worth living. He pointed out a curious fact that the word evil is simply live spelled backward, a neat twist that captures how evil feeds on what is alive and good. This force is not about the grim necessities of survival. It is about needless killing not just of bodies, but of spirit. When a person's spirit is crushed, when awareness, movement, growth, freedom, and will are trampled, life is choked out without a single drop of blood spilled. Every human being has the seed of evil somewhere deep inside. As one famous thinker once said, the line that slices good from evil does not run between countries or classes. It cuts through the core of every heart. Even so, there are some hearts more ready to let that darkness out. Two kinds of people stand out. The first is the psychopath, whose cold emptiness is often recognized and feared. But the second, less obvious yet far more common, is the malignant narcissist. These people walk among us in greater numbers, and they might be more responsible for the world's slow poison than all the psychopaths combined. Some experts believe evil people are simply an extreme version of the narcissistic personality. Today, doctors and researchers keep poking at the subject of narcissism, but we are still only scratching the surface. At its heart, narcissism is an obsession with the self, an overblown mirror that reflects back a person larger, brighter, and cleaner than they really are. The narcissist soaks in this image until reality blurs. They sink so deeply into themselves that they forget the feeling of another person's pain. The mild forms of narcissism can look harmless enough. Think of how easy it is to craft a polished version of yourself online. This is unhealthy, but mostly just sad. It becomes something far worse at the extreme end, where malignant narcissism lives. At this edge of the spectrum, a person latches onto an illusion of moral flawlessness. They cling to it for dear life. They will do almost anything to keep the surface clean. They do not care to be truly good. They only care to look good. This is their lie, a lie so big they start to believe it themselves. And so the phrase "people of the lie" was born. At its core, malignant narcissism is a defense. It hides deep terror, a terror that they are small, unworthy, or stained by imperfection. Sometimes childhood plants this terror, growing up under parents who were harsh or hollow themselves. Sometimes it comes from the soil of society or even the roots of genes. However it takes hold, the malignant narcissist cannot bear to face the truth that they mess up just like everyone else. They do bad things, they carry the same darkness as the rest of us, but they cannot admit it. Fear blocks the door. The fear is so woven into them that they might not even feel it anymore. If they did, their swollen self-image would slam it shut again. When a healthy mind does something wrong, it feels a stab of guilt. That sting reminds us we have wandered off the right path. We feel it, own it, and try to find our way back. This is the voice of conscience, but for the malignant narcissist, that voice is locked in a box. Every slip, every selfish act, every lie is buried under layers of excuses and self-made stories. They explain away what they did until they feel clean again. They dodge guilt by building stories so dense that no truth can slip through. Over time, they train themselves to believe they are forever right, forever pure. Their conscience grows numb from lack of use. This deadening of conscience has a cost. It frees them to do harm over and over without feeling the scrape of regret. They lie, they betray, they damage what is alive. But inside their heads, they are still heroes of their own tale. What marks them is not the single sin, but the quiet grinding pattern of it. They sweep every trace of wrongdoing into a dark corner they refuse to visit. It is not that they lack morality like the psychopath does. The malignant narcissist wages constant war to hide evidence of their darkness from themselves. Their greatest crime is this endless refusal to see the truth. One of their most twisted tools is scapegoating. When something ugly bubbles up inside them, rage, envy, cruelty, they hurl it outwards. They paint others with it. This is called projection. They push their own faults onto the people around them and then blame those people for sins that never belong to them. They call out monsters that exist only in the shadows they cast. They point fingers to keep eyes off themselves. Because they see themselves as spotless, they rage against anyone who dares suggest otherwise. To keep the mirror clear, they smear dirt on everyone else. In politics, scapegoating is a weapon sharpened daily. Some leaders are so obsessed with looking holy that they shut their ears to any whisper that their actions might be the true source of the rot. When policies fail, when the world cracks, they find a villain, another country, a rival party, a neighbor who thinks differently. They pound the blame onto these targets until their own hands look clean again. They tell the world they are fighting evil, but they misplace the evil's true home. The battle they fight is outward, not inward. Instead of rooting out sickness in themselves, they thrash at others. And because life itself keeps testing the mask they wear, they tighten it by harming anything that threatens to peel it away. They build tiny broken kingdoms under their rule, feeding their illusion of moral perfection by breaking what is living and good. When we see all this sickness swirling around our leaders and lawmakers, it is tempting to slap the label of malignant narcissist on anyone we dislike. But that is a trap. It risks making us into what we hate, a mirror image of the scapegoater, tossing blame to anyone who does not share our views. To resist this trap, we must drag our own shadows into the open. The more we see the failings in ourselves, the less we need to pin them on someone else. When we own our capacity for darkness, we grow an inner compass for spotting it in others. One psychologist pointed out that when we face our own ugliness, we sharpen a sense like a second sight. We learn to sniff out the same rot behind the polite smiles of others. When we stare down our own shadows, we do more than just keep our projections in check. We become harder to fool. We build a nose for the hidden decay that wears a mask of virtue. It is like learning the scent of rotten wood under fresh paint. One thinker put it simply: by facing the dark inside, we grow an instinct to catch the same darkness lurking behind a friendly smile or a righteous speech. This instinct matters because so many of the most dangerous people know exactly how to blend in. They wrap themselves in the flag, in holy words, in the warmth of good intentions. They talk of kindness and community. They speak in gentle tones about uplifting others. All the while, they hollow things out from the inside. And because most people cannot imagine that someone who seems so good might hide so much rot, they fall for the mask again and again. Many times in history, people have looked back and wondered how they missed the signs. How could someone so warm in public speeches be so cold in private rooms? The answer is painfully simple. Most of us are taught to expect evil to come dressed in rags or draped in obvious cruelty. We think the monster must wear horns. But real danger often walks in wearing a grin and a suit, holding a promise in one hand and a mirror in the other. By the time the mask slips, the damage is done. One older psychologist once pointed out that people stumble because they cling to the fantasy that an evil person must look the part. Snarling, violent, clear for everyone to see. But in truth, the worst harm can come from those who appear calm and reasonable, who wrap their poison in polite words. They know how to be kind when eyes are on them. They know how to charm when the room is watching. Their worst acts are done in the shadows, with a pen, with a policy, with a lie that grows roots before anyone thinks to pull it up. So what should we do, knowing that evil loves to hide behind a mask of goodness? The first step is not to drown in anger. Hatred has its uses. It wakes us up when we have been asleep at the wheel. But if we live in it too long, it twists us. Hatred eats us from the inside out. It makes us easy prey for the same games of blame and scapegoating that malignant narcissists love to play. They want us angry and blind. They want our minds tangled up in outrage so they can slip more lies under the door. Instead of feeding that fire, we should look to the sharper blade, the truth. Truth has a way of cutting through the costume. Lies need darkness to grow, but truth flips on the light. The more we shine it, the more the mask cracks. That is why people who trade in deceit hate truth tellers so fiercely. They fear the light that exposes them for what they are. The more truth spreads, the more desperate their cover-up becomes. They lie bigger, they accuse louder. They turn on their own in a panic to keep the mask from falling apart, and in the end, pride brings them down more surely than any direct attack. If you look at history, you see it over and over. The ones who climb the highest on a ladder built from lies are the same ones who fall the hardest when truth shakes the ground. It does not always happen overnight. It might take years. It might take a single slip, a moment when the gap between the mask and the true face becomes too wide to hide. When that moment comes, people who were blind finally see what was there all along. But the burden does not rest only on the deceivers to slip. It rests on us to keep the light burning. When we see the signs, small lies, quiet contradictions, moral pride that feels too pure to be real, we should not look away. We should poke at the story, test the edges, hold it up to the sun to see what rots underneath. And when we find rot, we should say so out loud to whoever will listen. Truth is not always comfortable. It rarely wins popularity contests, but it is stubborn. It survives the storms that drown out slogans and noise. In the end, malignant narcissists are easy to despise. They make themselves targets with their arrogance. But if we spend all our energy hating them, they win twice. Hatred weakens the one who holds it. It fills the mind with poison, pumps stress through the body, and blinds the eyes that should be clear. Better to spend that energy keeping our own houses in order, our own minds sharp, our own spirits ready to speak what is true, no matter how inconvenient that truth might be. So when we see the loudest voices, the ones who scream virtue the most, it is worth pausing to wonder, is there real goodness under the noise, or is the noise just camouflage for something hollow inside? This question does not mean we stand above others, untouched by the same flaws. We are all capable of telling stories to ourselves, covering shame with excuses, blaming others for shadows that are ours to own. Knowing that keeps us humble, it keeps us human, it keeps us from becoming what we claim to stand against. Keep watch. Keep your heart open, but your eyes clear. Keep your mind steady when the righteous thunder rolls in and tries to drown out quiet honesty. Hold on to truth like a lantern in a fog that never lifts for long. When we carry this lantern of truth, we do not just protect ourselves. We help others see through the fog too. Many people want to believe what they are told, especially when the words feel warm and comforting. It is easier to trust a speech about hope and goodness than to question what sits in the shadows behind it. But if enough people stand up and say, wait, look closer, listen again, watch what they do and not just what they say, then the mask has less power. Lies need an audience that nods along without a pause. The moment people start whispering to each other that something does not add up, the spell breaks bit by bit. One reason malignant narcissists cling to power so well is because they know how to play on our disbelief. We do not want to think someone who preaches kindness could be cruel. We do not want to imagine that a person who talks about fairness might quietly trade favors behind closed doors. So they keep their hands clean in public and dirty in secret. The more we refuse to look, the more they win. It does not mean we must live in suspicion all the time. It means we hold a steady standard. We ask to see behind the curtain. We check if words match actions. We compare the story told with the story unfolding in reality. And when the two do not line up, we do not let it slide. We talk. We share what we see. We keep the light moving from one mind to the next. When malignant narcissists lose control of their image, they panic. Truth cracks the mask, and cracks spread fast. They lash out more. They double down on the same tired scapegoats. They stir fresh anger, hoping rage will drown reason again. But each time someone refuses to swallow the lie, their grip weakens. That is why truth, even when quiet, is more dangerous to them than any crowd with pitchforks. Pride always stumbles. It builds walls too high to see the cliff's edge. When it falls hard. And pride hates the light that shows the drop coming closer. That is why people who fear truth hate scrutiny. They hate questions. They hate facts that do not bend to their story. They hate anyone who will not play along. So our work, if we want to stand against this quiet rot, is not glamorous. It is not always loud. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is as small as asking a question at the right moment. Sometimes it is refusing to nod along when everyone else claps. Sometimes it is telling a neighbor, a friend, a stranger, this is not right, look for yourself, check again. We can never scrape evil fully from the world. The line runs through every heart, including our own, but we can keep it from hiding so easily behind soft words and bright banners. We do that by staying awake, by knowing our own shadows, by refusing to hand our darkness to someone else to carry for us. As we do this, we must remember not to drown in our own bitterness. Anger can be fuel, but if we let it smother us, it burns us out from within. The people who thrive on deceit want us angry, blinded by rage and hopelessness. They want us so wrapped in hate that we become what they need us to be. Distracted, brittle, ready to fight shadows while they tighten their hold on the real world. Instead, we keep our eyes clear. We laugh at the hypocrisy when we see it. We mock the puffed-up pride that pretends to be pure. We shine light on every half-truth and watch it squirm. We remind each other that no mask holds forever when truth keeps knocking at the door. Every time one of these self-crowned saints stumbles, it reminds us that the world can still see through the lie when enough people bother to look. So we keep the lantern lit, hand it to the next person, and stand watch. Truth may not roar, but it never sleeps. And when it shines long enough, even the proudest mask cracks at last.